"Look, Margaret, you can see there's no room. Go eat in the bathroom. You're already used to it." The words from my daughter-in-law, Amber, echoed through the restaurant like a public slap. I felt more than 50 pairs of eyes lock onto me, waiting for my reaction. Some guests stifled their laughter. Others looked away in discomfort. But Amber just stood there, next to the main table, with that twisted smile I had struggled to tolerate for years. My son, Stephen, was sitting right beside her, checking his phone as if he hadn't heard a thing, as if his mother hadn't just been humiliated in front of his entire social circle. It was their wedding anniversary, 15 years together, and I had paid for every cent of that celebration. The Crest Room, with its imported linen tablecloths and floral arrangements that cost more than a family's entire monthly salary, all on my corporate card, all under my name. And there I was, standing in the middle of the room like an intruder in my ivory-colored dress that I had chosen with such care that morning. I had spent an hour in front of the mirror, trying on 3 different options, wanting to look presentable for my only son's celebration. How naive I was to think my presence would be welcome. How foolish to believe that after 15 years of marriage, after everything I had done for them, they would finally see me as part of their family. "The bathroom. Margaret," Amber repeated, raising her voice even louder to make sure everyone heard. "It's where you're usually most comfortable, right? Cleaning, fixing, doing what you do best." The laughter was more open this time. I felt the heat rise up my neck, my hands beginning to tremble slightly. But not from shame. It was something different. It was a cold clarity I had never experienced before. In that moment, with all those people looking at me as if I were a nuisance, as if I were the cleaning lady who had snuck into an elegant party, something inside me broke. Or rather, something was set free. I looked at my son. "Stephen," I whispered, hoping that he at least would say something, that he would defend me, that he would remember who had paid for his college, who had bought him his first car, who had financed every single one of his failed dreams. But he just glanced up from his phone for a second, looked at me with those empty eyes I no longer recognized, and looked back down. His silence hurt more than all of Amber's cruel words combined. I picked up my purse, that worn leather bag I had used for 20 years, and walked toward the exit. No one tried to stop me. No one asked if I was okay. I heard Amber say something about how I had finally understood my place, and more laughter followed. But I was already outside, breathing the cool night air, feeling the city lights flicker in front of me like silent witnesses to my humiliation. I stood on the sidewalk for a moment, seeing my reflection in the restaurant window. A 72-year-old woman with wrinkles that told stories of hard work, of sleepless nights building something from scratch. A woman who had sacrificed everything to give her son a better life. And there was the result, being thrown out like trash from a party she herself was paying for. I took out my phone and dialed a number I had kept saved for months. "Mr. Santos, my personal lawyer," answered on the second ring. "Mr. Santos, I need you to activate Plan B now, tonight." My voice sounded strangely calm, almost cold. There was a silence on the other end. "Are you sure, Mrs. Margaret? There's no turning back from this. Once we sell the shares and cancel the transfers." "I have never been more sure of anything in my life," I interrupted. "Sell everything. Cancel everything. And I want it done before this damn dinner is over." I heard Mr. Santos take a deep breath. "I understand. I will call you in 30 minutes with the documents ready. The Japanese buyers have been waiting for this opportunity for 2 years. They will pay the $200 million without blinking. $200 million. That was the figure no one in my family knew about. Stephen thought I had a small textile company that barely turned a profit. Amber believed the monthly $25,000 transfers they received were my life savings. Neither of them knew that Margaret Herrera was the owner of the largest distribution chain of Latin American textiles in the United States. That my warehouses supplied the biggest brands in the country. That I had built an empire working 18 hours a day while raising my son alone after his father abandoned us. I walked to my car. That old gray sedan I had been driving for 10 years. Stephen always made fun of it, saying it looked like a taxi from the 90s. Amber insisted I buy something more elegant, something that wouldn't embarrass her when they saw me arrive. But I had gotten used to flying under the radar, to no one seeing me as a threat, to being underestimated, I sat in the car and waited. The restaurant lights continued to shine, soft music filtering through the walls. I imagined Stephen and Amber toasting with French champagne, the kind that cost $500 a bottle. I imagined the guests congratulating them on their perfect marriage, on their enviable life. No one knew that every piece of furniture in their condo, every jewel on Amber's neck, every Italian suit Stephen wore, had my name on the invoice. My phone vibrated. It was a message from my granddaughter, Claire. "Grandma, where are you? I saw you leave. Are you okay?" "Mom says you left because you didn't feel well, but I know that's a lie. The only person in that family who still called me Grandma with affection. The only one who visited me without asking for money first. I'm fine, my love. I just needed some fresh air. Go back to the party. Don't worry about me," I wrote back. I didn't want to involve her in what was about to happen. Claire was 22 years old. She was finishing college. She had her whole life ahead of her. She didn't need to see her family implode tonight. Mr. Santos called exactly 30 minutes later. "The papers are ready. The Japanese will transfer the funds tomorrow morning at the first hour. $200 million into your personal account. I have canceled the corporate card your son was using, the one registered for the restaurant payment. I have also suspended all automatic transfers scheduled for this month and the following ones. The properties remain in your name, as they always were. The condo where your son and daughter-in-law live is registered as a corporate loan. Technically, they can be evicted in 30 days. He paused. "Mrs. Margaret, are you absolutely sure? Your son is. My son just let his wife publicly humiliate me without saying a word. My son has taken my money for 15 years as if it were his birthright. My son never asked how I was, never took an interest in my health, never wanted to know if I needed anything. He only called when he needed more. More money for the restaurant, more money for vacations, more money to maintain the charade of his perfect life." Mr. Santos was quiet for a moment. "I understand. The documents will be sent tonight. Tomorrow at 9 in the morning, the company will officially change hands. Congratulations, Mrs. Margaret. You just closed the biggest textile sale of the decade." I hung up and stared at the phone screen. I felt a strange mixture of relief and sadness. I had built that company thinking of leaving something for Stephen. I had worked until my fingers bled on those first sewing machines. I had slept on the factory floor to save on rent. I had turned down marriage proposals because I had no time for anything but work and raising my son. All for him. All so he could have what I never had. And now I was selling it all. $200 million he would never see. $200 million I wouldn't spend on fancy restaurants or European vacations. $200 million that represented 45 years of my life. I looked at the clock. It was 9:40 at night. I calculated that dessert would be being served, that 5-tier cake that had cost $7,000. When the time came to pay, when the waiter brought the bill and swiped my corporate card, the system would reject it. Declined. Insufficient funds. And all those guests who had laughed at me, all those friends of Stephen and Amber who had seen me as a burdensome old woman, would witness their shame. It wasn't revenge. Or maybe it was. A little. But more than that, it was justice. It was reclaiming my dignity. It was reminding them that the old woman they had sent to the bathroom was the only reason they could afford to celebrate in that place. I started the car and drove to my house. Not the luxurious condo where Stephen lived, not the residence with a pool that Amber always bragged about on her social media. My home was a small 2-bedroom apartment in a quiet neighborhood, with old furniture I had bought secondhand decades ago. Stephen was ashamed that I lived there. He always told me to buy something better, that with all the money I supposedly had, there was no excuse to live like a poor person. What he didn't understand was that I didn't need luxuries. I had grown up with nothing. I had known hunger, cold, uncertainty. This small apartment was a palace compared to the tin-roofed room where I grew up. And every cent I didn't spend on myself was a cent I could invest in the company, to grow, to build something solid. But not anymore. I was no longer going to live like a poor person so they could live like rich ones. I was no longer going to deny myself a decent plate of food so Amber could buy designer handbags. I was no longer going to wear worn-out clothes so Stephen could dress in the best stores in the city. I got home and took off my shoes. My feet ached. They always ached after standing for a long time. I had arthritis in my knees, a product of years working in the factory. Stephen didn't know. I had never told him about my aches, my pains, my sleepless nights. I didn't want to be a burden. I didn't want him to see me as a sick old woman. How ironic. I had tried so hard not to be a nuisance that they had decided I was invisible. I poured myself a glass of water and sat on the sofa. The same sofa where I had breastfed Stephen as a baby. The same sofa where I had cried when his father left us. The same sofa where I had planned every business move that had led me to build an empire. 45 years of memories in this small space. My phone started to ring. It was Stephen. I let it ring. He called again, and again, and again. 8 calls in 5 minutes. Then the messages came. Mom, what did you do? The card isn't working. Mom, answer. This is humiliating. Mom, people are staring at us. Mom, I need you to come now. Mom, fix this. I turned off the phone. For the first time in 15 years, I turned off the phone without feeling guilty, without feeling the obligation to solve their problems, without running out to rescue him from his own consequences. I sat on the sofa, looking at the dark phone on the coffee table. It was strange, that silence. For years I had slept with the phone on the nightstand, always alert, always waiting for Stephen to need me. How many times had I woken up at 3 in the morning because he had an emergency? How many times had I gone out in the middle of the night to bring him money, to solve some problem with suppliers, to pay debts he had accumulated with his irresponsibility? I got up and walked to my bedroom. I opened the closet and took out an old shoebox I kept on the top shelf. Inside were the photographs. Stephen as a baby, wrapped in a knitted blanket I had made myself. Stephen on his first day of school, with that uniform that had cost me 2 weeks' pay. Stephen at his college graduation, with the cap and gown I had paid for in 6 installments. Stephen at his wedding, with that designer suit that had cost $8,000 and that I had paid for without him even saying thank you. I took that last photograph. It was from his wedding day, 15 years ago. I was standing next to him, in a pearl-colored dress I had bought at a discount store. Amber was on his other side, radiant in her wedding dress that had cost $35,000. I remember that day, while they were getting ready, I heard Amber tell her mother that at least I had had the good sense not to wear something flashy that would ruin the photos. As if I were an inconvenient detail that had to be hidden. I put the photographs away and closed the box. Tomorrow I would go buy a new album. One where I would only keep the memories worth preserving. Stephen's first years, when he still hugged me when he saw me come home from work, when he still told me I was his hero, when he still loved me unconditionally, without interest. I turned on the phone. 37 missed calls. Stephen, Amber, unknown numbers that were probably their friends. 53 text messages. I read them all, one by one, with a calm that surprised me. The first messages from Stephen were panicked. Mom, the card was declined. Mom, I need you to transfer money now. Mom, this is an emergency. Then came Amber's. Margaret, I don't know what game you're playing, but it's not funny. Fix this immediately, or there will be consequences. Then the messages became more desperate. Mom, I had to borrow money from the guests to pay. Mom, you made us look ridiculous. Mom, how could you do this to us? How could I do this to them? That phrase was repeated in several messages, as if I were the villain, as if I had done something unforgivable. Not them, who had publicly humiliated me. Not them, who had treated me like garbage. Not them, who for years had taken my money as if it were a right and not a gift. I was the bad one for finally saying enough was enough. There was a message from Claire. Grandma, Dad is furious. He says you blocked his cards and canceled the transfers. Mom is crying and screaming. I don't understand what happened, but whatever it is, I'm on your side. Always. I love you. I felt my eyes moisten. That girl, that beautiful girl who had inherited my spirit, not her parents' greed. Claire was studying nursing. She worked weekends at a city hospital to pay for her expenses. She had never asked me for money. When I offered to help, she told me she preferred to earn things for herself. so different from her father. I replied, "My love, I'm fine. Don't worry about me. Take care of yourself. We'll talk calmly soon. I love you more than words can express." I put the phone down and went to the kitchen. I made a cup of chamomile tea, the kind that helped me sleep on difficult nights. I sat by the window and looked out at the street. The lights in the neighboring apartments were on. Families eating dinner together, parents helping their children with homework, couples watching television, cuddled together. Normal, simple, honest lives. I had wanted that. A family that valued me. A son who sought me out because he missed me, not because he needed money. A daughter-in-law who treated me with respect, even if it was just basic. I wasn't asking for unconditional love. I was just asking not to be treated like a nuisance, like an ATM, like someone whose only function was to finance their whims. The phone rang again. This time it was a number I didn't recognize. I answered. "Mrs. Margaret Herrera? This is the manager of the Crest Room. I apologize for bothering you at this hour, but there was an incident with the payment for tonight's celebration. Your son mentioned that you had covered the expenses, but the card was declined. We managed to resolve the situation temporarily, but we need to confirm the payment method for tomorrow. The celebration is over, I assume," I replied in a calm voice. "Yes, ma'am. About an hour ago, but the outstanding balance is $42,000, mister. Stephen signed a temporary promissory note, but we need. Cancel the promissory note. I do not authorize any charges. I will not make any payment related to that celebration. If my son signed something, it is his responsibility, not mine." There was an uncomfortable silence. "But ma'am, I understand there was a prior agreement. Your son mentioned that you always cover these events. My son is mistaken. There is no agreement. And I recommend that in the future, you verify who is actually paying before assuming commitments of that magnitude. Good night." I hung up before he could respond. I felt a strange sense of power. For years I had been the silent solution to all of Stephen's problems, the one who paid without asking, the one who signed without reading, the one who said yes to everything because I was afraid of losing my son. I was afraid that if I stopped being useful, I would stop being loved. What an irony. To discover that I was never loved, I was only convenient. I was only necessary. And the day I stopped being useful, they sent me to the bathroom like a dog. I finished my tea and lay back on the sofa. I didn't want to go to my bed yet. I knew I wouldn't be able to sleep. My mind was too active, processing everything that had happened, everything that was to come. Tomorrow, my life would change completely. Tomorrow, I would officially be a woman with $200 million in the bank and without the burden of supporting a family that didn't value me. I thought of my mother. She had died 20 years ago, but I still remembered her words. "Mija, never let anyone make you feel less than what you are. Not a man, not a boss, not even your own blood. Your dignity is not for sale." I wish I had listened to her sooner. I wish I had had the courage to set boundaries years ago. But I suppose it's never too late to start. The phone vibrated again. Another message from Stephen. "Mom, I need to talk to you face to face. I'm coming to your house now. You can't ignore me like this. I'm your son." I looked at the time. It was 11 at night. Of course he would come. Of course he thought he could show up and demand explanations. Of course he believed I would give in, that I would apologize, that I would open my wallet again and solve his problems. But this time would be different. This time I was ready. I got up and walked to the hallway mirror. I looked at myself intently. Margaret Herrera, 72 years old. Survivor. Fighter. Empire builder. Mother who gave everything. And now, a woman taking her life back. 15 minutes later, I heard the doorbell. Insistent, desperate, as if someone was ringing an emergency alarm. Then came the pounding on the door. "Mom, open up. Mom, I know you're in there. Mom, we need to talk now." Stephen's voice sounded agitated, caught between anger and desperation. I took a deep breath and opened the door. He was disheveled. The perfectly pressed suit he was wearing at the dinner was now wrinkled. His tie hung loosely around his neck. His face was flushed and his eyes were glassy. He had been drinking. "What the hell did you do?" Those were his first words. Not even a hello. Not even a question about how I was after the public humiliation I had suffered. "Good evening, Stephen. Come in," I replied calmly, stepping aside. He entered like a storm, pacing back and forth in my small living room. "Do you have any idea what you put us through? Do you have any idea of the shame? I had to borrow money from the guests, from my friends, from the restaurant partners. $42,000, Mom. $42,000 that I now owe and have no way to pay." I sat on the sofa and looked at him. "Speak slower. I don't understand what any of that has to do with me." He froze, as if he couldn't believe what he had just heard. "What do you mean? What does it have to do with you? You blocked the card. You canceled the payment. You left me ridiculous in front of all those people." "I didn't block anything. I simply decided not to pay any more for celebrations where I am not welcome." I folded my hands on my lap. "Or have you forgotten what your wife said to me tonight?" "Oh, for God's sake, Mom." Amber was joking. She has a sarcastic sense of humor. "You know that. You can't take everything so personally. You've been so sensitive lately." I felt my blood boil, but I kept my voice calm. "Joking is making everyone laugh. What she did was humiliate me. And you sat there, looking at your phone, without saying a word. As if I didn't matter. As if your mother didn't even deserve a basic defense." Stephen ran his hands through his hair. "You're exaggerating. Amber didn't mean anything bad. Besides, you were standing in the middle of the party. There were a lot of people. It was logical that there wasn't space at that moment. You could have waited a while. Wait in the bathroom? Wait where your wife specifically sent me? Wait like a servant while you all enjoyed the party I was paying for? Here we go again with the money. It's always the same with you. Always reminding us how much you spend, how much you do, how much you give. You know what? I'm tired of feeling guilty for accepting your help. If it bothers you so much to help me, then don't do it. But don't just cut everything off overnight like some bitter, resentful woman." A bitter, resentful woman. Those words hung in the air between us. I looked at my son, this 45-year-old man standing before me with the attitude of a petulant teenager. "Do you know when the last time was that you asked me how I was? When was the last time you visited me without needing something? When was the last time you called me just to say hello?" Stephen looked away. He didn't answer, because we both knew the answer. Never. Or if he had, it had been so long ago that neither of us remembered. "I thought I was doing the right thing," I continued. "I thought that if I gave you everything I never had, if I made your life easy, if I removed every obstacle from your path, you would be happy, and I thought your happiness would make me happy. I was wrong. I gave you so much that you forgot the value of things. I gave you so much that you stopped being grateful. I gave you so much that you now believe it's your right, not a gift. It's $25,000 a month, Mom. $25,000 that disappeared from my account today. How do you expect me to pay the rent? How do you expect me to pay the restaurant employees? How do you expect me to keep everything running? Stephen, you are 45 years old. Your restaurant has been open for 10 years. If after a decade it still isn't self-sufficient, then it's not a business. It's an expensive hobby that I have been funding. A $500,000 a year hobby, to be exact." I watched him process that figure. $500,000 a year. $25,000 a month multiplied by 12. For 10 years, $5 million in total, plus the condo, plus the cars, plus the vacations, plus everything else. I had probably invested close to $8 million in maintaining the illusion that my son was a successful entrepreneur. "The restaurant is going through a rough patch," he muttered. "The economy is tough. Customers aren't spending like they used to. The economy is always tough, Stephen. There's always an excuse. Last year it was the suppliers. The year before it was the competition. Before that it was the location. There is always something that justifies why you need more money. But there is never anything that justifies why you can't manage on your own." He sank into the armchair, his head in his hands. "I can't believe you're doing this. Right now. Just when I need you most. And when haven't you needed me? I've been your backup plan for 15 years. Your magic fix. Your permanent life raft. When was it enough? When were you going to stand on your own 2 feet?" He looked up, and for the first time that night, I saw something different in his eyes. It wasn't anger. It was fear. Real fear of losing everything. "Mom, I promise things will change. I'll work harder. I'll make the restaurant work. I just need you to give me one more chance. One last chance." How many last chances, Stephen? This is probably number 20. And it always ends the same. "You promise." I give in. Nothing changes. "This time will be different. I swear it on Claire. On my daughter. This time I'm going to show you I can do it." He mentioned Claire. The only pure light in this dysfunctional family. "Did you know that your daughter works weekends cleaning hospital rooms? Do you know she studies until 2 in the morning because she has double shifts during the day? Do you know she's been wearing the same pair of shoes for 2 years because she doesn't want to spend on unnecessary things?" Stephen frowned. "Claire is young. It's good for her to learn the value of work. Claire is 22 years old. You, at 22, already had a brand new car paid for by me. You were already living in an apartment that I rented. You already had a credit card with an unlimited limit. She has 2 jobs and dreams of being able to pay her tuition without student loans. Do you see the difference? It's not the same. I'm your son, your only son, and she is my granddaughter, my only granddaughter. The only person in this family who treats me with genuine love, who visits me because she wants to see me, not because she needs something. The only one who inherited my work ethic instead of inheriting your sense of entitlement." Stephen stood up abruptly. "I didn't come here for a lecture. I came for you to fix this mess you caused. Reactivate the transfers. Unblock the cards. And tomorrow we'll talk calmly about all this." "No," I replied firmly. "I'm not reactivating anything. The transfers are canceled permanently. The cards are closed for good. And the condo where you live, the one you think is yours, is technically corporate property. You have 30 days to find another place." His face turned pale. "You can't evict us. You can't just throw us out on the street like that. I'm not throwing you on the street. I'm giving you 30 days, which is more than the law requires. You have time to find something within your real means. Something you can pay for with your own income." Stephen walked toward me, his fists clenched at his sides. His face showed a mixture of disbelief and contained rage. "You're crazy. Completely crazy. Amber was right. She said you were going senile, that you've been acting strangely lately. I should have listened to her. I should have taken you to a psychiatrist when you started with these attitudes." Those words. Those words confirmed everything I needed to know. It wasn't just Amber who despised me. It was him, too. My own son had been talking about me behind my back, questioning my sanity, planning to control my life, as if I were an incapable old woman who needed a guardian. "Strange attitudes?" I asked, keeping my voice surprisingly steady. "Do you mean the time I refused to pay for the vacation to Dubai? Or when I said $25,000 a month was enough and you asked for $30,000? Or maybe when I suggested you get a second job to stabilize the restaurant? Those strange attitudes? Mom, you're an elderly woman. You live alone. You have no friends. You spend all day working at that company. It's not normal. Women your age should be enjoying themselves, traveling, spending time with family. The family that sends me to the bathroom in public. That family. Enough with that," he exploded. "Amber will apologize. I'll talk to her. But you need to apologize too, for this dramatic stunt. For making us look ridiculous. For acting like a spoiled brat who didn't get what she wanted. What I wanted was respect. What I wanted was to be treated like a human being, not an ATM. What I wanted was for my son to defend me when his wife humiliated me. But apparently, that was asking too much." Stephen stepped back, running his hands over his face. "Look at you. Mom, you live in this miserable apartment. You wear old clothes. You drive a car that looks like it's about to fall apart. And where do you get so much money to be playing the offended millionaire? Because the transfers you make don't come from nowhere. Unless..." His eyes narrowed with suspicion. "Unless you've been hoarding money that should belong to the family. Money that should belong to the family. As if he had contributed a single cent. As if he had worked a single hour to build what I had built. The company is mine, Stephen. Completely mine. I built it from scratch. Every machine, every warehouse, Every contract, every client, everything is the result of my work. There is no family money. There is my money, the money I earned. And how much money are we talking about? He asked, with an almost calculating look that sent a shiver down my spine. Because if it's a big company, then technically I have a right to a part of it. I'm your only heir. Everything you have will eventually be mine. Eventually. That word, waiting for me to die so he could take what he considered his by birthright. He didn't ask about my health. He didn't ask if I was sick. He just wanted to know how much money there was and when he could have it. The company doesn't exist anymore, I said simply. I sold it tonight. He froze. What? I sold the company. $200 million. The Japanese buyers are transferring the funds tomorrow. And before you ask, no, you will not see a cent of that money. Stephen staggered backward as if he had been physically struck. 200 million. You had $200 million and you made me live on $25,000 a month? You made me beg for scraps while you were a multi-millionaire? I gave you $25,000 a month? $300,000 a year. Those aren't scraps, Stephen. That's more than 90% of the population earns in an entire year. But for you, it was never enough. You always wanted more. You always needed more. And I kept giving because I was afraid of losing you. Well, congratulations, Mom. You lost me. You lost me completely. His voice was trembling with rage. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to sue you. I'm going to hire the best lawyer, and I'm going to prove that you're senile, that you're not in your right mind. I'm going to get that money back because it's mine by right. Go ahead, I replied, with a calm that seemed to infuriate him even more. My lawyers are the best in the country. I've been preparing this transition for months. Every document is in order. Every signature is certified, and I have recent psychological evaluations confirming my complete mental capacity. I did it precisely because I knew you would try something like this. His face contorted into an expression of pure hatred. You will regret this. When you're old and sick, when you need someone to take care of you, I won't be there. When you're dying in a hospital, alone, you'll remember this moment. You'll remember that you chose money over your family. I didn't choose money over my family, Stephen. I chose my dignity over abuse. I chose my peace of mind over toxicity. And I chose to stop financing people who don't love me. If that makes me the villain of your story, I can live with that. He headed for the door, but before leaving, he turned around one last time. Mom was always weak. That's why Dad left her. That's why she never found anyone else. That's why she spent her life working like a slave, trying to compensate for the fact that she wasn't enough for anyone. And now, with this pathetic little stunt, you're just proving he was right to leave. Those words were designed to destroy me, to find the deepest wound and plunge a knife into it. Stephen knew that his father's abandonment was my greatest trauma. He knew I had spent years wondering what I had done wrong, why I wasn't enough to make him stay. But this time, instead of sinking me, those words liberated me, because I realized something fundamental. I hadn't been weak. I had been strong, so strong that I had raised a son alone, so strong that I had built an empire from nothing. So strong that I had survived abandonment, poverty, discrimination, everything. And now, I was strong enough to survive the rejection of my own son. Your father left me because he was a coward who couldn't handle the responsibility of a family. Go, knowing that you are more like him than I ever imagined. And you're right about one thing. I worked like a slave, but not to compensate for anything. I worked to give you everything I never had. What a waste that effort was. Stephen left, slamming the door so hard it shook the walls. I heard his footsteps receding down the hall, then the sound of the elevator, then silence. A silence so deep that for a moment I felt the whole world had stopped. I sat on the sofa and looked at the clock. It was 1 a.m. In less than 6 hours I had lost my son. In less than 6 hours my life had completely changed. And the strange thing was, I didn't feel the devastating pain I expected to feel. I felt something different. I felt relief. The phone vibrated. It was Claire. Grandma, Dad just left your building in a rage. Mom is hysterical. They're screaming at me because I refuse to take sides. Can I come to your house? I need you. Come, my love. I'm waiting for you. The door is open for you. It always will be. 20 minutes later, I heard a soft knock on the door. I opened it, and there was Claire, her eyes red from crying, with a backpack on her shoulder. She came in and hugged me with a force that almost knocked me over. I'm so sorry, Grandma. I'm so sorry for everything they did to you. I didn't know. I didn't know they treated you like that. I hugged her back, feeling her tears wet my shoulder. You have nothing to be sorry for, my sweetheart. You are the only light in the midst of all this darkness. We sat on the sofa, and I told her everything. Every detail of the humiliation at the restaurant, the decision to sell the company, Stephen's visit, the cruel words he had said. Claire listened in silence, tears rolling down her cheeks, squeezing my hand in hers. I can't believe they're like that. I can't believe my own father said those horrible things to you. She sighed deeply. Grandma, I knew Mom was difficult, but Dad always seemed different. I always thought that at least he loved you. I thought so too, my love. But sometimes people show us who they really are, when they stop getting what they want from us. Claire was silent for a moment, processing everything. Then she looked up at me with those eyes that always reminded me of mine when I was young, full of determination and fire. Grandma, did you really sell the company for $200 million? Are you really a millionaire, and you never told us? I nodded slowly. I built that company from scratch, Claire. I started with a used sewing machine in the garage of a house I rented. I worked 18 hours a day, sewing uniforms for schools, tablecloths for restaurants, whatever I could. Your father was little. I took care of him while I worked. He slept in a crib next to the machine. That's how it all started. And how did you get from that to 200 million? I told her the whole story. How I had gotten my first big contract with a hotel chain. How I invested every cent of profit in more machines, more employees, more space. How, little by little, I went from sewing to distributing. How I identified a niche in the market that no one was covering. Quality textiles at competitive prices for American businesses importing from Latin America. How I built a network of suppliers in Asia and clients all over the continent. And Dad never knew any of this? I told him I had a small textile company. Technically, I wasn't lying. He never asked for more. He never showed any interest in my work. He only cared about how much money he could get from me month after month. I looked toward the window, where the sky was beginning to lighten. I think, deep down, I was afraid, Claire. Afraid that if he knew how much money I had, he would try to take it all at once. At least this way, giving him monthly installments, I maintained some control. But Grandma, 200 million. You could have lived like a queen. You could have had a mansion, trips, luxuries. Why did you live like this? She gestured around the small apartment. Because I didn't need those things. My worth isn't in what I own, but in what I built. And because every dollar I didn't spend on myself, I could invest in growing, in creating jobs, in building something solid. I paused. Besides, if I had lived lavishly, your father would have suspected. He would have started asking questions. And honestly, I didn't want to give him access to everything. I already saw how he handled the money I gave him. Imagine if he'd had unlimited access. Claire shook her head, still processing. So, what are you going to do now? With all that money? With your life? The truth is, I don't know completely, but I know that for the first time in decades, I'm going to live for myself. I'm going to travel. I'm going to see those places I always dreamed of visiting but never had time for. I'm going to sleep in late, if I feel like it. I'm going to read books, without feeling guilty for not working. I'm going to discover who Margaret is, beyond being a mother and an entrepreneur. And, to us? Claire asked in a small voice. Dad and Mom? Are you really going to cut them off completely? I sighed deeply. I'm not going to lie to you, my love. What your father said to me tonight crossed a line that can't be uncrossed. The words about your grandfather, about my weakness, about deserving to die alone, that wasn't said in a moment of anger. That came from a place of deep resentment that has been there for years. I paused, choosing my words carefully. I'm going to keep my distance. I'm going to protect my peace. If, someday, your father truly changes, If someday he seeks me out without needing something, without trying to manipulate me, then maybe we can talk. But I'm not going to maintain a relationship where I am only a source of resources. Claire nodded, wiping her tears. I understand, and I support you. Even though it hurts because he's my dad, I understand you need to do this for you. She took my hands in hers. Grandma, I want you to know that I will always be here, not for your money, but because I love you, because you are the strongest person I know, because you taught me that hard work has value and that dignity is not negotiable. Those words broke me in a way Stephen's cruelty couldn't. I cried. I cried like I hadn't cried in years. All the pent-up tears, all the accumulated frustration, all the stored-up pain came out in that moment. And Claire held me, hugged me, let me cry without trying to fix it. She was just present. When I finally calmed down, she went to the kitchen and made tea for both of us. We sat together as the sun began to rise, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Grandma, can I ask you something? She said after a long silence. Anything, my love. Why did you never tell me about the company? I could have kept it a secret. We've always been close. I had my reasons. First, I didn't want to put you in an uncomfortable position with your parents. If you had known, you would have had to lie or keep secrets, and I didn't want that burden on you. Second, I wanted you to grow up appreciating the value of money. Watching you work 2 jobs, watching you fight for your dreams, filled me with pride. You are more like me than your father ever was. Claire smiled sadly. Mom always says I'm stubborn and proud like you. She says it as an insult, but I take it as a compliment, and you should. Stubbornness and pride, when channeled well, become determination and dignity. I took a sip of tea. Claire, I want you to continue exactly as you are. I'm not going to pay for your college, and I'm not going to give you a monthly allowance. I want you to keep building your life with your own hands. But what I am going to do is create a trust fund for you. When you graduate from nursing school, when you get your first job, when you prove you can support yourself, then you will have access to that fund. It will be your safety net, your opportunity to invest in your future, your financial freedom. But first, you need to learn to fly on your own. Grandma, you don't have to give me anything. You've already given me so much with your example. I know, but I want to. Because you do value things. You do understand sacrifice. You do deserve to have opportunities without having to work to exhaustion as I did. I took her hand. Just promise me you'll never tell your parents about the trust fund. This is between you and me. I promise. Claire squeezed my hand. Thank you, Grandma, for everything, for being strong, for teaching me to be strong, too. Claire's phone started vibrating insistently. She looked at the screen and sighed. It's Mom. She's called 20 times. Says if I don't come home now, she's going to disinherit me. She laughed bitterly, as if there was anything to inherit. Do you want to go back? No, but I have to get my things. All my clothes are there, my books, my documents. I can't stay forever with what's in this backpack. Then we'll go together. Later today, you'll gather your things calmly, without them pressuring you, and you'll come live here with me temporarily. Or, if you prefer, I'll help you find a small apartment near the university and the hospital. Can I really stay here? This is your home as much as it is mine. And honestly, I could use the company. This place has been too quiet for many years. Claire hugged me again. I'm going to help you with everything, Grandma, with whatever you need. And we're going to make new memories together. Good memories. Memories that aren't stained by selfishness and manipulation. We stayed on the sofa, watching the city wake up. The first workers heading out, the shops opening their doors. Life continuing as always, oblivious to the personal earthquakes happening in the privacy of homes. And for the first time, in a long time, I felt hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, the best years of my life were still to come. At 10 in the morning, my phone rang. It was Mr. Santos, my lawyer. Mrs. Margaret, good morning. The funds have just been transferred. $200 million are now in your personal account. The buyers are extremely satisfied with the transaction. Congratulations again on closing this historic deal. Thank you, Mr. Santos. And the other matters? Everything is in order. The automatic transfers have been permanently canceled. The corporate cards are closed. The condo has been reclassified as your personal property, not corporate, which means you can proceed with the eviction when you see fit. I have sent the official notification by certified mail this morning. Your son has 30 calendar days to vacate. Perfect. One last thing, Mr. Santos. I need you to prepare a trust fund for my granddaughter, Claire Herrera, 22 years old. I want to deposit $5 million, but with specific conditions. She will not have access until she graduates from college and maintains a stable job for at least 6 months. I want her to learn to stand on her own, 2 feet first. En excellente décision. Any additional restrictions? Yes. Her father cannot be a co-beneficiary or have any type of access to or information about this trust. In fact, no one other than Claire, you, and I should know of its existence. Is that clear? Perfectly clear, Mrs. Margaret. I will have the documents ready in 48 hours. I hung up and looked at Claire, who had been listening with wide eyes. $5 million is too much, Grandma. It's a fortune. I don't need that much. It's not too much. It's exactly what you need to have freedom. To buy a house one day. To open your own clinic if you want. To travel. To study more. For whatever your heart desires. But first, you're going to prove that you can build your life without depending on that money. When the time comes, it will be a tool, not a crutch. Claire nodded, tears in her eyes. I'm going to make you proud, Grandma. I promise. You already make me proud, my sweetheart. Every single day. That afternoon, we went to Stephen and Amber's condo together. Claire used her keys to get in. The living room was a disaster. Empty wine bottles on the coffee table. Dirty dishes in the sink. Amber was on the sofa, in her pajamas, with her makeup smeared and her hair disheveled. When she saw me walk in behind Claire, she shot up. What is she doing here? This is my house. She has no right to just walk in like that. Technically, it's my house, I replied calmly, and I came to accompany my granddaughter while she collects her belongings. Claire isn't going anywhere. She's my daughter. She stays here, where she belongs. Amber crossed her arms, trying to look authoritarian despite her messy appearance. I'm 22 years old, Mom. I'm an adult. I can decide where I live. Claire walked toward her bedroom. I'm going to pack my things. I'll disinherit you, Amber screamed. If you go with that woman, you won't see a cent of our inheritance. What inheritance, Amber? I asked, with genuine curiosity. The condo I paid for? The furniture I bought? The restaurant that's been operating at a loss for years? What, exactly, are you planning to leave her? Amber turned red with rage. You have no idea what we've built. Stephen is a successful businessman. Our restaurant is renowned throughout the city. Your restaurant has lost money every single month for the last 3 years. I know, because I was covering those losses. $25,000 a month, of which at least $15,000 went straight to plugging the business's financial holes. The other $10,000 you spent on your lifestyle. I took some papers from my bag. I have the financial statements right here. Would you like to review them? Amber turned pale. How did you get those? That's private information. It's information my accountant compiled every time my son asked me for money for the business. He always told me it was an investment, that one day I'd see returns. I've been waiting years for those returns. They never came. I left the papers on the table. The restaurant is an expensive fantasy that I was financing. Without my money, it has about 2 months before it closes. Maybe 3 if you cut expenses drastically. This is your fault. It always has been. You with your toxic attitude, your resentment, your jealousy of our happiness. Amber pointed an accusing finger. You can't stand to see us doing well. You can't stand that Stephen chose me over you. That's why you're doing all this. It's pure revenge from a bitter old woman. I laughed. A genuine laugh that seemed to confuse her more than enrage her. Amber, I'm not jealous of you. I pity you. You've built your entire identity around someone else's money. You've lived for 15 years in a condo that isn't yours, driving a car you didn't pay for, wearing clothes you didn't earn. And now that the tap has been turned off, you have no idea how to survive. That's not a life. It's dependency disguised as luxury. Shut up, You don't know anything about me. You don't know what I've sacrificed." "Sacrificed? What have you sacrificed exactly? Your pride in asking me for money every month? Your dignity in insulting me publicly? Your basic humanity in treating me like a servant?" "I didn't treat you like a servant. It was an offhand comment. You were being dramatic. You told me to go eat in the bathroom, in front of 50 people, at a celebration I was paying for. That's not an offhand comment. That is deliberate cruelty." Just then, Stephen walked in from the bedroom. He looked terrible. Puffy eyes, wrinkled clothes, unshaven. "What are you doing here?" he asked in a hoarse voice. "I came for Claire. She's moving in with me." "Of course. Now you're brainwashing my daughter, too." He staggered over to the bar and poured himself a whiskey, even though it was barely noon. "You know what the saddest part of all this is, Mom? I really thought you loved me. I thought all that financial help was because you wanted to see me happy. But no, it was to control me, to keep me on a leash, so you could brag about being the martyr who sacrificed everything for her son. If that were true, I wouldn't have sold the company. If I wanted to control you, I would have kept giving you money with conditions. But what I did was the exact opposite. I liberated you. I liberated you both. Now you can live your lives without depending on me, without having to put up with the annoying old woman who paid for everything. We don't want to be liberated. We want what is ours by right." Stephen took a long drink of his whiskey. "I am your only son. Everything you built was supposed to be for me. Nothing I built belongs to you simply because you are my son. An inheritance is earned with love, with respect, with consideration. It's not demanded as a right while you treat the person who gave you life poorly." Claire came out of her room with 2 large suitcases. "I'm ready, Grandma. I have everything I need." Amber ran to her. "Claire, think about what you're doing. If you go with her, you're betraying us. You're abandoning us at our worst moment. Is this how you repay us for everything we've done for you? Everything you've done for me?" Claire's voice was louder than I had ever heard it. "Like what? Like making me feel guilty every time I needed something? Like constantly comparing me to your friends' children? Like criticizing every decision I made because it wasn't elegant or lucrative enough for you?" She looked at her parents with a mixture of sadness and disappointment. "The only person who has truly been there for me, with no conditions, no criticism, no judgment, is Grandma, and you treated her worse than a dog." Stephen slammed his glass down on the table. "Get out, both of you. Get out of my house right now." "With pleasure," I replied. "But remember, it's technically my house. You have 30 days. On day 31, if you are still here, officers will come to evict you. I hope you use this time wisely to find something within your actual means." We left the apartment with Claire's suitcases. As we waited for the elevator, I heard a scream of frustration from inside. Something broke, probably Stephen throwing something against the wall. Amber was screaming too, blaming him for everything, saying he should have treated me better, that he should have seen this coming. The elevator arrived. We got in. The doors closed, leaving that chapter of my life behind. I looked at Claire, who had tears rolling silently down her cheeks. "Are you okay, my love?" She nodded. "I'm okay. Just sad. Sad because I just realized my parents aren't the people I thought they were. Sad because I finally see everything clearly. But also relieved. Relieved to be out of that toxic environment." The following days were strange. There was a sense of calm I hadn't experienced in years, as if an invisible weight had been lifted from my shoulders. Claire settled into the guest room, and for the first time in decades, my small apartment felt like a real home. We ate breakfast together before she left for the university. We had dinner at night, sharing stories. She told me about her patients at the hospital, and I told her about my years building the company. A week after the break with Steve and Mr. Santos called me with news. "Mrs. Margaret, your son has tried to hire 3 different law firms to contest the sale of the company. All 3 have rejected him after reviewing the documentation. There is no legal basis for a lawsuit. Everything is perfectly in order. And the apartment? We received confirmation that the notice was delivered. The 30-day clock is running. Do you want me to proceed with eviction plans in case they don't comply?" "Yes, but be gentle in the process. I don't want to humiliate them more than necessary. I just want them to understand that there are consequences for their actions. Understood. I also wanted to inform you that Claire's trust is ready. $5 million deposited under the conditions you specified. She will receive a notification letter on the day she graduates from college. Perfect. Thank you for everything, Mr. Santos. That afternoon, as I was preparing dinner, my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. I hesitated, but answered. Mrs. Margaret Herrera? This is Miriam Castellanos, a reporter from Forbes. We're writing an article about the sale of Herrera Textiles to the Japanese corporation. It's the largest transaction in the textile sector in the last decade. Would you be able to grant us an interview? My heart skipped a beat. The news was public. I hadn't thought about it, but of course a $200 million sale would be news. I prefer to maintain my privacy, I replied cautiously. I understand perfectly, but your story is inspiring. A woman who built an empire from scratch, who kept a low profile for decades while dominating the textile import market. Our readers would want to know that story, especially other female entrepreneurs who are fighting to make their way in a male-dominated world. I thought about it for a moment. Maybe it was time to step out of the shadows. Maybe it was time for my story to be told. All right, but with conditions. You do not mention my family. Nothing about my son or my personal life. Just the business story. Of course. We will completely respect your personal privacy. The interview was published a week later. The headline read, Margaret Herrera, the invisible millionaire who revolutionized American textiles. The article detailed my journey, from the sewing machine in the garage to the distribution empire. It talked about my business strategies, my vision for the market, my commitment to quality. It included comments from clients who spoke of my integrity and professionalism. It was a flattering but honest portrait of 45 years of hard work. The day it was published, my phone didn't stop ringing. Calls from former colleagues congratulating me, invitations to business conferences, requests for interviews from other media outlets. A university even wanted me to give a talk to their business students about female entrepreneurship. It was overwhelming but also gratifying. Finally, after a lifetime of working in silence, my effort was being publicly recognized. Claire arrived that night with a copy of the newspaper in her hand, smiling from ear to ear. Grandma, you're famous. Everyone at the university is talking about you. My professors were asking me if you were my grandmother. I'm so proud. I hugged her, feeling a warmth in my chest. But with the joy, also came worry. Stephen would have definitely seen the article. Now he knew for certain the magnitude of what he had lost. Not just the $25,000 a month, but $200 million. A fortune that could have been partially his, if he had chosen love over greed. That night, as I feared, Stephen showed up at my door. But this time, he was different. There was no anger in his face. There was something worse. There was desperation. Mom, I need to talk to you, please. I let him in, but kept my distance. Claire was in her room studying. Stephen sat on the sofa, his hands trembling. I saw the article. I saw the numbers. I saw everything you built. And never told us. I told you I had a textile company. You never asked for more. You're right. I never asked. I never cared about your work because I assumed it was insignificant. I assumed you were just my mom who helped me out financially. He lowered his head. I was an idiot, Mom. A blind, ungrateful idiot. I waited in silence. I wasn't going to make this easy for him. The restaurant is going to close. The suppliers are demanding payments I can't cover. The bank denied me a loan because, technically, I've been operating in the red for years. Amber is blaming me for everything. She says I ruined her life, that I tricked her into believing we were rich. He took a painful pause. And she's right. I tricked myself, too. What do you want from me, Stephen? He looked up, his eyes bloodshot. I'm not here to ask for money. I know that after everything I said, after how I treated you, I don't deserve a single cent. I came to ask for your forgiveness. Forgiveness for not valuing you. Forgiveness for letting Amber humiliate you. Forgiveness for treating you like an ATM instead of my mother. His words sounded sincere, but I had heard apologies before. Apologies that lasted until the next time he needed something. And what changed, Stephen? Why do you care now? Because I lost everything. The restaurant, the condo, my marriage. Amber left me yesterday. She said she married a successful man, not a failure who depended on his mom. She left with everything she could carry. The jewelry, the designer clothes, even the money from the safe. She left a note saying she didn't sign up to be poor. His voice broke, and as I watched it all fall apart, I realized that the only person who ever truly loved me unconditionally, who truly sacrificed for me without expecting anything in return, was the one I treated the worst. I felt a mix of emotions. Part of me wanted to hug him, to comfort him like I did when he was a child. But another part, the part that had been deeply wounded, held firm. Stephen, I appreciate your apology. I really do. But apologies aren't enough. Words are easy. Real change is hard. I know. And I don't expect you to forgive me right away. I just want the chance to show you that I can change. To show you I can be the son you deserve to have. How do you plan to do that? I got a job. As a manager at a textile store. Ironic, isn't it? Working in the sector where you were queen, and I didn't even know. The salary is modest, $3,000 a month, but it's honest. I found a small apartment I can afford. It's about the size of this place, maybe smaller. No luxuries, no pretensions, just the basics. He paused. I'm going to learn to live within my means. I'm going to learn to appreciate what I have instead of coveting what I don't. I'm glad to hear that. I really am. Mom, I'm not asking you for money. I'm not asking you to help me with the apartment or with debts. I'm just asking that one day, when you see that I've really changed, that I've really learned, you'll give me another chance to be your son, not your income source, not your project, just your son. I looked at this 45-year-old man, reduced by circumstance to something perhaps more humble, as he always should have been. Time will tell, Stephen. For now, focus on rebuilding your life, on finding out who you are without someone else's money holding you up. And if in 6 months, a year, 2 years, you've really changed, then we'll talk. He got up to leave, but before he reached the door, he turned. One more thing. Claire, can I see her? Just to tell her I love her and that I'm sorry I failed her too? That's her decision, not mine. But I'm warning you, Stephen, if you hurt her, if you try to manipulate her or use her to get to me, we are finished for good. Understood? Understood. I called for Claire. She came out of her room cautiously. She had heard the entire conversation from her room. Dad, she said simply, not moving closer. Stephen cleared his throat. Claire, I know I failed you. As a father, as an example, as everything. I have no excuses. I just want you to know that I love you, and I'm going to work every day to be someone you can be proud of. Claire looked at him in silence for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. I hope you mean it, Dad. I really hope you do. Because I still love you. But loving you doesn't mean I'm going to let you hurt me. I learned that from Grandma. I understand. And I respect that. Stephen walked to the door. Take care of your grandmother. She's a treasure I didn't know how to value. When he left, Claire sat next to me. Do you think he'll really change? I don't know, my love. People can change, but only if they truly want to. Time will tell. For now, we'll get on with our lives. The months passed. I truly began to live for the first time in decades. I hired a financial advisor who helped me invest the $200 million wisely. I created foundations to support female entrepreneurs, scholarships for low-income students, and textile training programs for marginalized communities. The money I had accumulated began to have a purpose beyond supporting people who didn't appreciate it. I traveled. I saw Italy, as I had always dreamed. I walked the streets of Rome. I ate fresh pasta in Tuscany. I rode a gondola in Venice. Then I went to Spain, to France, to Greece. Every place showed me that the world was bigger and more beautiful than my small life of work had allowed me to see. Claire joined me on one of the trips during her vacation. They were the 2 happiest weeks of my life. I bought a house. Not an ostentatious mansion, but a comfortable home in a quiet neighborhood with a garden. It had space for visitors, a library where I finally read all those books I had bought but never had time to open, and a kitchen where Claire and I experimented with new recipes on Sundays. I gave lectures at universities. I shared my story with young entrepreneurs, especially women facing the same obstacles I had faced. I told them that success isn't just measured in money, but in the ability to stay true to your values while building your dreams. I told them that setting boundaries isn't selfishness, it's survival. I told them to never, ever let anyone make them feel small. Stephen kept his word, to an extent. He kept his job. He moved into that modest apartment. He didn't ask me for money. Every 2 weeks, he sent me a brief message, a hello, a question about my health. Small steps toward rebuilding what was broken. I replied cordially, but kept my distance. Trust is built with time and consistency, not with words. 6 months after our last conversation, he invited me for coffee. I accepted. We met at a simple coffee shop, not one of those luxurious restaurants he used to frequent. He looked different, thinner, more tired, but also more real. There was a humility in his eyes I had never seen before. We talked for 2 hours. He told me about his job, about the challenges of living on a tight budget, about the lessons he was learning. He told me he had started therapy to work on his behavioral patterns and his sense of entitlement. He showed me pictures of his new apartment. A small space, but clean and organized. There were no luxuries, just the essentials. You know what's strangest, Mom? He said as we drank our coffee. I'm happier now than when I had everything. I don't have the stress of keeping up appearances. I don't have to pretend to be something I'm not. I can sleep peacefully, knowing that the little I have is the product of my own effort. I'm glad to hear you say that, Stephen. Truly. I still think about that night. About the horrible things I said to you. About Dad. About you dying alone. He closed his eyes in pain. Not a day goes by that I don't regret it. Not a night I don't wake up thinking about how I could have been so cruel to the person who loved me most. Words hurt, Stephen. Especially when they come from those we love. But they also show us truths we needed to see. Your words showed me that I had lost my dignity trying to buy your love, and that had to end. You weren't buying my love, Mom. I always loved you. I was just so blinded by greed, by the lifestyle, by the image, that I forgot how to show it. Love is shown with actions, not words. And for years, your actions said that I was only worth what I could give you. He nodded, accepting the truth. You're right. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to change that. Not so you'll give me money. Not so you'll include me in your will. Just because you are my mother, and you deserve to be treated with love and respect. I didn't respond right away. I watched him. There was sincerity in his voice. But he had been sincere before. Time would show if this change was real or just another performance. Let's keep having coffee every 2 weeks, I said finally. Let's get to know each other again. As mother and son, not as benefactor and beneficiary. I'd like that. I'd like that very much. A year after that terrible night at the restaurant, I was sitting in the garden of my new house. Claire had decorated everything for a small celebration. There were lavender-colored balloons, my favorite, and a cake she had baked herself. It was my 73rd birthday, and for the first time in decades, I was celebrating surrounded by people who genuinely loved me. Claire was there with her boyfriend, Ben, a young nurse who worked with her at the hospital. He was respectful, hardworking, and treated her like a princess. Stephen arrived with a bouquet of wildflowers, the only ones he could afford on his budget, but more meaningful than any expensive arrangement he had ever given me before. I had invited a few friends I had made on my travels, retired businesswomen with whom I shared stories and laughter. When I blew out the candles, I didn't wish for riches or health or longevity. I already had all that. I wished for peace. I wished for this second stage of my life to continue to be as full as it had begun. I wished for the wisdom to enjoy every moment without carrying the weight of the past. After the cake, Claire stood up with a glass in her hand. I want to make a toast to the most incredible woman I know, to my grandmother, who taught me that true wealth isn't in what you have, but in who you are, who showed me that saying no is an act of self-love, not selfishness, who built an empire with her own hands and had the courage to let it go when it no longer served her. I love you, Grandma, Thank you for being my example, my refuge, my hero. Everyone toasted. Even Stephen, with tears in his eyes, raised his glass. To Mom, to the woman who gave us everything and who finally decided to give something to herself. Freedom. That night, after everyone had left, I sat on the porch looking at the stars. I thought about the long road I had traveled. From that poor girl in a tin-roofed house, to the young single mother with a sewing machine, to the invisible entrepreneur who built an empire, to the woman who finally learned to put herself first. I didn't regret anything, not even the years of financing Stephen, because those years taught me invaluable lessons about self-worth and boundaries. I didn't regret selling the company, because that decision freed me from a life that no longer served me. I didn't regret cutting toxic ties, because that severing allowed true bonds to strengthen. My phone vibrated. A message from Claire. Grandma, thank you for the best birthday. I love you to infinity. And a photo of the two of us, hugging, smiling, genuinely happy. I replied, I love you more, my sweetheart. Thank you for reminding me that true love exists. Then a message came from Stephen. Happy birthday, Mom. I know I still have a lot to prove, but I want you to know that every day I work on being better. That every day I'm grateful for the lessons, even though they were painful. I hope one day I can say I got my mother back, not for her money, but for her heart. I replied, one step at a time, son. One day at a time. I put the phone away and closed my eyes. The night breeze caressed my face. 73 years old, 45 building, 1 destroying, and now, starting over. Not with the energy of youth, but with the wisdom of experience. I no longer needed permission to live. I no longer needed to justify my decisions. I no longer needed to pay to be loved. I had learned the most important lesson of all, that the love you have to buy is not love at all, and that sometimes losing everything is the only way to gain the one thing that truly matters, your dignity. Today, I don't need permission to live. It's not revenge, it's liberation. And in this freedom, I finally found what I had been searching for my whole life without knowing it. Peace. Peace with myself. Peace with my decisions. Peace with my past and hope in my future. I opened my eyes and looked at the stars one last time before going inside. Tomorrow would be another day of this new life I had built on the rubble of the old one. And for the first time in 73 years, I couldn't wait to see what it would bring.